Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a very nice weekend. Let's see who we have on the stream tonight. We have Tiny Demolition Lover. Great to see you. Hope you're well up there in Scotland, especially with the new little one. Jack. We have John O'Sullivan. Great to see you, John. Colin, great to have you on. Ends of the God, great to see you too. Mark, great to see you. We also have Killer. Great to have you on moderating. Thanks so much. We have another Tom. Roisin, great to see you. Ends of the God, great to have you on. Hope you're well. Casper, great to see you. Wolf Pet, great to see you too. CGM, hope you're well. Great to see you on tonight. We also have Jem, Ava, Chatty Rat. We also have Raven 1983 Witch, great to see you. We have Mega Hairy Bomb, great to have you on. Hope you're well. Who else have we got? Beer Wizard, the best wizard of all. We have, let me see, Suzanne, great to see you. Freckle Bunny, great to see you too. Jean T, Sean, Claire, FSM is the dog. Angelo, great to see you all. We also have Ted Boy, great to see you. Mike, Scott, Daily Blaze, great to see you. Sean, John, Nuddy Alcy, great to see you too. Hope you're well. Alistair, great to see you. And so many more. Can't say hello to everyone. Obviously, we're up to 360 viewers. Wow, that's I think almost a record for the very first few minutes of the live stream. So very interesting weekend, of course. Monday. I'm not going to talk about what happened on Monday. I think you've had enough of that, and we're back into normal politics, of course. So we're going to talk a little bit about Brexit and the US trade deal, which has been pretty much put on ice, permafrost. The mini budget, cost of living, and we might touch on a few other areas as well. Before we begin, remember, guys, to smash the like button. We're up to 360 viewers, so please do smash the like button as you come in. It's greatly appreciated. And you can hit me with super chat if you'd like me to read out your comment. Did something happen recently? Did something happen on Monday? Something, but I just can't put my finger on what it was. Is it Freddie Mercury related? No. Freddie Mercury comes to mind. I don't know why. But I wanted to show you first this clip put together by Phantom Power, who I follow on Twitter. I do recommend following Phantom Power. From Scotland, just to show you this clip from Liz. So this is Liz Truss back in 2020 talking about a trade deal with the US, and then the news of today.
Now, of course, one of the biggest opportunities of Brexit is the opportunity to strike a free trade deal with the United States. And I think this shows there's a real economic headwind behind our economic partnership.
The UK government's given up on the idea of a trade deal with the United States, something that proponents of Brexit trumpeted as one of the biggest wins from leaving the European Union. Negotiations with the Biden administration have proved far too complicated, politically unpalatable here in the UK. So that, for now, is an aspiration that has been shelved.
You remember the Brexiteers said one of the greatest things about leaving the EU will be the idea that we can sign all these wonderful trade deals all over the world. And the icing on the cake, of course, was a US trade deal, because the US is the biggest economy in the world. So the Brexiteers, of course, are saying, we need to leave the EU, we need to detach ourselves from Europe and do trade deals with Asia, but in particular the US. And when Trump was in the White House, of course, they were saying, yeah, it'd be so easy. Trump was replaced with Biden. Look, I said, even when Trump was in the White House, it's not going to be easy, because it won't be Trump that will be doing the negotiations, it'll be Congress. And at the time, the Democrats held the House. And it's possible that they will lose the House this year, hopefully not, but they may lose the House of Representatives. But another problem for the UK government is that even in the House of Representatives, there are Republicans who do not want to sign a trade deal with the UK if they feel the Good Friday Agreement is under threat. And you've heard from Truss and others saying, yeah, we're going to trigger Article 16. We don't care about the Northern Ireland Protocol. The protocol needs to go. The protocol needs to be renegotiated. And if a border is put up on the island of Ireland, it's going to affect the Good Friday Agreement. And the Americans are not on board with that. And they said if that happens, they would not just not give the UK a trade deal, but they could potentially impose sanctions on the UK. So this has been enough of a threat to keep the UK on board when it comes to the Northern Ireland Protocol. We've heard about them complaining about it, but I've said this for years now, it's rhetoric. I never truly believed they would trigger Article 16 or that they would try to renegotiate the protocol. They have said it, but they've never actually taken the steps to do that. They've never taken the steps to walk away from the protocol. And the DUP seem to have believed that they would, but in the end they didn't. And I still don't think they would do that. I've said, we've come close to perhaps them triggering Article 16, but I said on numerous occasions that Article 16 doesn't suspend the protocol, it only suspends part of the protocol. And it starts a process to resolve whatever issue was brought up that required Article 16 to be triggered. But you can't just trigger it to stop the protocol. It doesn't work like that. And if the UK government were saying we're going to do that, then it would be in breach of international law, in breach of the protocol, and could potentially see a border being put up on the island of Ireland, which is not what the Good Friday Agreement is all about. The DUP and hardline unionists in Northern Ireland had hoped a border would be put up on the island of Ireland, but they have failed at every turn. And the fact that Brexiteers were saying this is the this is the jewel in the crown, this is the icing on the cake of Brexit, a US trade deal, and now that it's been, put on ice once again, 6 years have passed. Wouldn't you think that the administrations of Theresa May, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss would have been trying to work towards some sort of trade deal from the very beginning? As soon as the vote came in, okay, let's start working on a trade deal with, at least open up channels. But they didn't do that. And the idea that it's been described as it's not going anywhere because it was too complicated. Obviously, the UK probably don't have the professionals, the experts necessary to do a proper trade deal. And I've said before, any trade deal that would be signed with the US would greatly benefit the US. It wouldn't benefit the UK so much. And it seems the Biden administration and Congress are disinterested because it's just too much hassle. And, and it carries the risk of giving the UK something and then them going ahead and potentially harming the Good Friday Agreement. Because once the trade deal is signed, it's difficult to undo that. So I think they're hoping for a government, maybe for a government that will be in place that will take Brexit off the table. It's still possible to have a trade deal with the US, but I once again, I don't think it would be in Britain's interest to do so. Here is Gareth Thomas, a Labour MP, who was questioned by Ian Dale on LBC about this. And he was asked about chlorinated chicken, for example.
And how would you protect British farmers here? Because and indeed British consumers, because the whole issue of chlorinated chicken comes up whenever we talk about a trade deal with the US. British beef farmers, I think, would be very concerned about hormone-injected beef coming into this country. Trade deals are always give and take, and I think whether it's a Labour government or a Conservative government, if you want a trade deal with the US, you are going to have to give things as well as take.
No, that is true, but you don't have to bend over backwards as the government have appeared to have been doing in recent negotiations. I mean,
like if you look at New Zealand, the UK is obviously in a stronger position. It's a bigger economy. It has a larger population. It should be in the position of dictating to New Zealand what to do. You have to accept this. But obviously it worked the other way. New Zealand got a better deal out of it. So can you imagine Liz Truss's government trying to negotiate with the United States?
The Australia trade deal saw huge giveaways to Australian farmers as part of a sort of a desperate effort to get the first post-Brexit trade deal over the line very quickly, as criticism mounted of the government for not moving more quickly on the US deal and on other trade deals. So you're right, there would have to be negotiations with the US, and we would need to be very clear about the British interests that we wanted to protect, which would include making sure our farmers were looked after and making sure that the NHS, for example, was protected, as well as commitments on labour standards, etc.
Would you give a guarantee no chlorinated chicken under a Labour government?
I certainly hope there wouldn't be chlorinated
that's
chicken.
That's not a guarantee, is it? Because Boris Johnson did give that guarantee.
Well,
Boris Johnson guarantee. Boris Johnson said there would be no border in the Irish Sea. Boris Johnson said there were no parties. Boris Johnson said the rules were followed. Why are you quoting Boris Johnson here? Whatever Boris Johnson says, you can be sure it's the opposite. So Boris Johnson would be fully on board with chlorinated chicken. If Boris Johnson said there would be no chlorinated chicken, then you can be guaranteed there will be. Whatever Boris Johnson says, it's the opposite.
I'm not sure we would want to see that in any way, shape or form. So happy to make sure that we would have high standards, that the mistakes that have been made in terms of the Australia deal wouldn't be repeated in terms of the US deal, and that those high standards were maintained and the British farmers weren't undermined.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's a Liz Truss government or a Keir Starmer government. A trade deal with the US would put the UK in a very difficult spot, because you would have a very powerful opponent in this trade deal, or partner, whatever language you want to use, and they would say, okay, we want the NHS, and the UK government say, no, you can't have it. And they say, do you want a trade deal? And the UK government would say, yes, we do, but we don't want to give up the NHS. And they would say, well, we're not doing a trade deal unless the NHS is on the table at least. And, that's the way it would work. Do you want a trade deal? Because it doesn't really benefit us that much. You represent very little market for us. So you need to have the United States put in a corner, basically, where you're really negotiating with them. I've said this before. It's like, a small producer trying to negotiate with a huge manufacturer. Like if I wanted to get in a deal on an internet connection, for example, and the town hall wanted to get a deal on an internet connection, it's completely different. Maybe it's not a very good example, but you can understand the scale here. Who's going to get a better deal? The bigger one or the smaller one? And the UK at this moment is much smaller, much smaller than the United States. So the US is obviously in a very strong position. It'd be more comparable, if the negotiations would be much more on an equal footing if it was the United States and the EU, or the United States and China, but not the United States and the UK. The UK will bend over backwards to get whatever. It will bend over backwards to get a trade deal. And it doesn't matter if it's Liz Truss in charge. It doesn't matter if it's Keir Starmer. Freckapunny, thanks so much for that super chat. Brexit is so bad, we'll end up with beefy chlorine. Yes. It's just getting worse and worse. And what's interesting today was there was a story about... So the French president, Macron, wants to begin a sort of European community of sort. Not the European Union, but a sort of community of European countries. Some of them may be members of the European Union, some of them may not be. So this has been put on the table. Turkey, Iceland, the United Kingdom are perhaps interested in joining it. So there would be greater cooperation between these countries. The EU isn't too happy about it because they would see it as a potential rival in some areas. But it could be a way of bringing the UK closer to Europe once again, joining this sort of club, and then eventually becoming an EU member state once again. But that's going to take a long time, I'm afraid. And we're going to see a lot of rubbish come down the road from the Tories and potentially from the Labour Party when it comes to Brexit. Brexit is an absolute disaster. The best thing you could be doing is going in the opposite direction. I was speaking to some people this weekend, some Italians, and they were asking me about Brexit. They were asking why did the UK vote for this? And I was trying to explain, not the role of Nigel Farage and the Tory party and all of this in the space of about 10 minutes, and it was not easy. Tories out now, yes. The first objective has to be park trade deals or whatever. Get the Tories out. Get a progressive government in place. Max, it'll take decades to fix this. I'm afraid so, yeah. And I don't think the Scottish people are going to wait around decades. This is a question I would have for Gordon Brown. If I ever met Gordon Brown, or if you have a chance to meet Gordon Brown, ask him, how can Scotland get back into the EU? How does it do it? Is it through the UK? And if it's through the UK, then how is that going to happen? Because Scotland could become independent next year. They could, if this referendum goes this way, it would start the process of being independent. And that would, I believe Scotland becoming a member of the European Union would be much faster than, it would take place much faster than the UK becoming a member of the European Union again. Because so much has to change in Britain. In Scotland, the majority of people are pro-European. In the rest of the UK, you need to convince more and more people to become pro-European. You have to convince the Brexiteers first that Brexit was a bad idea, and then convince them that, yes, our place is in Europe. That's a task. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it will take a long time. Cambridge Analytica. I had the same convo with some Canadians, and it's really difficult because people are like, well, why did they vote for this? Did they not understand the damage it was going to do? And I brought up the point of sunlit uplands. People were convinced that they could have their cake and eat it. People were told, yes, we will be in the single market. Don't worry, we're not going to leave the single market. Daniel Hannan said that. Farage was saying we're going to leave the single market. Another Brexiteer saying we will remain in the single market. Part of the Brexit vote, of course, was a bloody nose for the Tories. People were angry over austerity. It could be argued that if the vote had taken place 10 years before, people would have voted a different way. But I think there were so many things stacked against the status quo, and remaining in the European Union was seen as the status quo for a lot of people. Sunlit uplands now pissing it in shite. Yes. Max, Scotland will be independent. There's no going back now. No, I agree. It's just, a lot of the commentators are saying that it's inevitable at this stage. The polling is consistently heading towards independence. And the arguments from the other side, from the unionists in Scotland, are always the same. The SNP is bad. The SNP are not capable of governing, and they seem to miss the point that independence is more than just the SNP. But I'm not here to talk about the SNP and independence. I just wanted to cover that Brexit issue. So moving on, we have Kwasi Kwarteng refuses to let OBR release forecasts with mini budget. So the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, is normally the organisation that provides the Chancellor with his or her forecast, with a forecast for the budget. So the budget is based on what the OBR present. Kwasi Kwarteng is refusing to do that this time. I don't want anyone to see the forecast from the OBR. What sort of language does that speak? It says, yeah, we need to hide stuff because it's going to be terrible. Nico, great to see you on the stream. Thanks so much for that super chat. Scotland could ask for a union with Ireland and work together to join the EU, or for Scotland. Sort of from the inside. This is a very interesting take, yes, and this has been put out by a number of people as a suggestion. So what Scotland could do is it could form a sort of Celtic union with the Republic of Ireland, and in a sense become a member state through that. But I still have a feeling what will happen is Scotland will become independent. It will apply for EU membership, and it will have a lot of support from countries like Ireland or Denmark or Sweden, for example. So some countries will provide it with support, will speak up on its behalf, and I think it's going to, it could actually be fast tracked. You know, the criteria for entering seems to be pretty much there, and the country is enthusiastic about joining the European Union. So there's a lot on one side of the scale. There will, of course, be, if Scotland becomes independent, there will be a withdrawal agreement. So there will have to be an agreement with Westminster. We don't know who will be in charge at that stage. If Liz Truss were, let's say the referendum goes ahead, and Scotland votes to end the union, to become independent, this will begin the negotiations between the Scottish government and the Westminster government on a withdrawal agreement, in a sense. So how about trade, about assets, about the military, a lot of things will be on the table for negotiation. Trident, for example, what will happen to that? And property owned by the royal family, this would be up for debate as well, I would imagine. But there's, we're a good bit away from that yet, but I would imagine the SNP, the Greens, and people within the independence movement are already discussing this and saying, okay, what should we have on the table? So I don't think it's going to be like Brexit, where they believe, no, we don't know what we're going to do until it happens. And that's one of the reasons why Brexit has been such a disaster. There was no planning put in place because many of the Brexiteers didn't expect the vote to win. They were actually quite surprised. And then they realized, oh, we won. Now what do we do? 19th of October 2023, vote. Goodbye, England. Awoke. I want a country with a smaller wealth gap. Yes, that's very important. Trident will go to Wales. Oops. Anyway, it says here, Kwasi Kwarteng has refused to let the government watchdog access the economic impact of planning tax cuts expected in a mini-budget on Friday. Mel Stride, the Tory chair of the Treasury Select Committee, urged Kwarteng to allow independent forecast for the public finances to be published alongside his mini-budget on Friday. Stride released a strongly worded statement urging more clarity around the effects of the new Chancellor's fiscal interventions. The Chancellor is expected to unveil tax cuts of £30 billion to £50 billion, according to some estimates, with the government's intervention to freeze energy prices for consumers and businesses could cost more than £100 billion. He's also expected to review his fiscal rules to allow government to borrow more. And unfortunately, the Office for Budget Responsibility is not being permitted to release their findings. Stride, a long ally of the former Chancellor and defeated leadership contender Rishi Sunak, said independent forecasts from the Office for Budget Responsibility were necessary to provide assurance and confidence to international markets and investors. Yes, because the Office for Budget Responsibility is extremely important and well respected. And if they say this is what the budget will do, this is the impact the budget will have, maybe it's not very positive for the UK economy, maybe it's not very positive politically, but you need someone independent saying this is the impact it'll have. Because if they're no longer independent, then they become a political mouthpiece, and they're not respected on the world stage. They're not respected internationally or nationally. He said, as a committee, we have in the past reported to the House that we consider it very important that significant changes to taxation are announced in a fiscal event alongside the OBR forecast. These forecasts are a vital indicator of the health of the nation's finances and provide reassurance and confidence to international markets and investors. There has been a deterioration in our economic outlook since the last OBR forecast in March. There has been significant fiscal intervention since then, and we are told there will be further significant interventions, including major permanent tax cuts to be announced on Friday. Under these circumstances, it's vital that our independent OBR forecast is provided. At least Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor, was fully on board with the OBR. Kwasi Kwarteng is not, and this is very concerning. Richard Hughes, the chair of the OBR, said in a letter to Stride that he had notified Kwarteng when he became Chancellor that the OBR was ready to provide a forecast. He said a quick turnaround would mean the forecast provided less complete analysis, supporting the key judgments, less detailed breakdowns of the key economic and less contextual and supplementary information than produced in normal times. So, if they don't have enough time to produce it, they'll have to do something shorthand. And that's not what international investors and the public want to see. But the government spokesperson said, given the exceptional circumstances our country faces, we have moved at immense speed to provide significant energy bill support. No, you haven't, because why wasn't this done during Boris Johnson's administration? There was months going on where Boris Johnson was saying, I'm not going to do anything because it's up to the next Chancellor. But why didn't Sunak and Truss and Johnson sit down and work out some sort of agreement, some sort of plan? And I've been saying this while they were campaigning. Why weren't they doing that? Now they're saying, we need to do something really quick because there isn't much time. Bullshit. Given the exceptional circumstances our country faces, we have moved at intense speed to provide significant energy bill support for households and businesses, and are acting swiftly to set out further plans to kickstart economic growth later this week. We remain committed to maintaining the usual 2 forecasts in this fiscal year as is required. It is understood the Chancellor's plans to hold a full budget later in the year, though the bulk of the measures ministers plan to implement in their first year of the administration is likely to be included in Friday's event. As well as the mini-budget on Friday, there is expected to be a statement from Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Business Secretary, on Wednesday, outlining energy support packages for businesses. So this will be very interesting. This on Wednesday, so tomorrow, in the House of Commons, Jacob Rees-Mogg is going to present support for businesses. So this, we're going to have to see what that is. There was talk about businesses having to wait an extra 3 months. Now, this could be his statement. His statement will be, in 3 months' time, we're going to tell you what we're going to give you. And obviously, that's not good enough, because businesses are going to the wall now. They're laying off staff. They're cutting the working week. And some of them have already closed because they can't afford these energy bills. They can't wait another 3 months. Some of them have closed. Some of them are closing. And, what do they do? The ones that are still operating, what do? Do they close their operations and hope in 3 months' time that there will be some sort of support? Or do they remain open, hoping that the support arrives in 3 months, and if it doesn't, or if it's not enough? Aye, thanks so much for that super chat. Sorry I'm late. I've been very busy. Did anything important happen this week? So a bunch of football fans singing about someone named Liz being in a box. You're terrible. No, something happened yesterday, but I can't remember what it was. There was a bunch of people in London for some reason. Maybe there was a football match or something like that. My God, no, we're not going to talk about the monarchy tonight. I promise. Or I promise not. I promise to try not to talk about the monarchy. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. Thanks, once again. Max, I don't mean to be rude, but how much impact do you think that this channel actually has, especially in the land of Nod? Thanks. It's an interesting question, and I'd love to know what sort of impact the channel does have, because the channel has 115,000 subscribers, 115,200 to be exact, and the vast majority are in the UK. So there's about 100,000 people. Now, some of them may be bots, or I hope not, but some of them, let's say 80% or 90% are real people. I just thought of this. There are almost as many people watching this channel as who voted for Liz Truss to be Prime Minister. I think it was like 180,000 members of the Conservative Party selected from 180,000. So it's actually probably more people subscribe to this channel than elected Liz Truss as Prime Minister. Just think about that for a moment. Of course, the support is spread throughout the country. The further it goes up, the more impact it will have. But a lot of people have commented directly to me and said, look, thanks for what you're doing. I really like the channel. I go there, along with others, of course, to find out about Brexit, to find out what's happening. So I get a lot of very positive messages from people. I don't know how many people are actually convinced by what I say or convinced by what I put up, if they converted, or it can be just a place for people to go and they feel, somebody's saying something that I agree with. I'm surrounded by Brexiteers, and this is an outlet for me. This is somewhere I can go. It's one of the reasons I started up the channels, because when I first started looking into Brexit, trying to understand why people voted for it, it was difficult to find someone speaking on the opposite side. You found lots of channels from Brexiteers. You found lots of videos online of Farage and Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson, but you found very few voices on the other side. That's changed over the last 4 or 5 years, which is a wonderful thing. But at the very beginning in 2016, there were very few people talking about how bad Brexit would be. And, the greatest exception, of course, was James O'Brien. He was the one, he was the shining light. He was the beacon against Brexit. But apart from him, even on LBC, there were very few people. And LBC, pretty mainstream, but, at the time there was also Talk Radio, I think, and they were fully on board with Brexit. And the BBC, of course, were trying to maintain some sort of balance by having, an expert and Jacob Rees-Mogg, an expert and Boris Johnson, an expert and Nigel Farage on. So, but I hope it's having an impact. I think it's having maybe the impact is isolated or it's very small, but it has. I presume it's having some sort of impact. Thanks for that super chat. Whoops. Alexis, thanks so much for that super chat too. Max, would you have Sarah Slayers from Salvo on the stream or on the Sunday Roast channel? Yeah. Let me take a note of the name. I've heard the name before, but I don't remember who it is. Let me take out my paper and quill. Very old school. Just so if I put it in a text file, I'll probably close it and forget. But I'll check that out. So yeah, there's a number of very interesting people we'd like to have on the Sunday Roast. One of them who we're trying to book at the moment, we have her on board, but we just need to find a slot for her, is, now I won't say the name, but it's somebody you have seen on TV a lot. So that would be really interesting to have her on, and we'll a very big fish to catch for us. But I'll check that out. Thanks so much for that super chat, Alexis. Reagan Elite, great to see you. Thanks for that super chat as well. They put the wrong Liz in a box, Max. Very mean, Reagan Elite. It's almost like Peter Hitchens and Christopher Hitchens. No. Thanks for that. Yeah. If Liz Truss, imagine Queen Elizabeth as Prime Minister and Liz Truss as Queen. Maybe many people would have preferred it to go that way. Maggie, great to see you on the stream. Thanks for that. What happened yesterday? They sang verse 6. They sung verse 6. It's the whole national anthem changed for some reason as well, which some people don't really like because it doesn't have the same rhythm to it. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Max, ask Indie Truck about that. Yeah, I need to get Indie Truck, Davey, and Random Scottish History back on again because they were very popular and we want to have those guys back on. Also to talk about what's happening in Scotland and independence, because it seems we're almost just over a year away from a referendum, as if it's not blocked or whatever. There is the chance, of course, that the Supreme Court strike it down, so then the SNP will say, okay, we're going to go for an election, and that will be the mandate, which would be very interesting. Something I would actually prefer. I'm not a big fan of referenda because I think they're easily manipulated. It's much more difficult to manipulate a general election. You have, I'm not saying it's not possible, I'm just saying I think voting for a party on one issue or principal issue probably makes more sense. Because we saw with the Brexit referendum, there was a lot of misinformation about, and I think the vast majority of people who voted to leave didn't know what they were voting for. They had no idea what they were voting for, or what they were voting for was to give the Conservatives a bloody nose, or to vote against the status quo, and then they realised after, actually, we've frigged the country. So it'd be interesting. So tomorrow will be a very interesting day. We have the business secretary laying out an energy support package for businesses, because remember, businesses are not covered by the energy price cap, which has gone up to £2,500. We would have hoped that Liz Truss would have brought it down from 1,971, but it's going up to 2,500. There is another £400 of support, so we could say in reality it's going up to 2,100. But then that's for normal use. That's not it's not an absolute cap. It's just on a sort of guide on normal use. So people, for example, disabled people who have electric wheelchairs or equipment plugged in to keep them safe, keep them warm, keep them alive, to provide them with mobility. They of course use more, and I covered that in a video earlier today. They use a lot more energy, and they will not be in a way protected by this because they're not normal users. So when it comes to businesses, they also need to be protected. And as far as I know, in the Netherlands, and Conservator can correct me if I think Conservator told me today that there is more support for businesses along with consumers in the Netherlands at the moment. Jacob Rees-Mogg's business plan. Oh God, yes. We've heard earlier on in the year, or a few weeks ago actually, that Jacob Rees-Mogg was talking about some support coming in 3 months' time. As I said, businesses can't wait 3 months. They need support now. Liz Truss, it says here, Liz Truss prepared to be an unpopular Prime Minister to boost economic growth. This is what she said when she was interviewed by Sky News.
Labour's policy to tax the energy companies is supported by 68% of the public, according to polls. You're prepared to be unpopular, aren't you?
Yes, I am. What is important to me is that we grow the British economy, because that is what will ultimately deliver higher wages, more investment in towns and cities across the country. That is what will ultimately deliver more money into people's pockets, and it will also enable us to fund the public services like the National Health Service. And in order to get that economic growth, Britain has to be competitive. And if we put up taxes, if we have arbitrary taxes on energy companies, if we have high corporation tax, we're not going to get that investment and growth, which will ultimately...
The energy companies have said themselves that a windfall tax is not going to disincentivize them from investing. They said, yes, we will invest anyway, because the windfall tax is on the profits after the investment has been... So the business say, okay, this amount of money we're going to spend on investment. They invest, and then at the end they have their profits. The windfall tax is on that profits. It's not anything to do with investment. And Boris Johnson and others were saying, yeah, well, we're going to apply a windfall tax after a lot of pressure from Labour. We're going to apply a windfall tax, but they can get away with not having that windfall tax imposed on them if they plan to invest. And they said, yeah, but we're going to invest anyway. Oh, okay, that's great. So then you don't have to pay the windfall tax.
Damage opportunities in this country, and that's what I'm bothered about. What I care about is, are there those jobs there in the future, those high-paid jobs, industries like technology, industries like energy. That's what is motivating me.
There is unemployment coming because of a recession. She's talking about high-paid jobs. She's talking about growing the economy. First of all, the economy has to go through the recession first. Then you can start talking about picking up the pieces. She's talking about picking up the pieces before the recession has arrived. Or some would argue there is a recession already here. You have to go through the recession first. And the consequences of a recession is mass unemployment, or at least increased unemployment. So businesses are closing, they're laying off their staff. Those staff are now unemployed. That has to work through the system. You can't just reopen shops and businesses tomorrow. You need a period of recession where the economy readjusts. And that readjustment is going to be extremely severe. And Liz Truss is living in some sort of cloud cuckoo land if she thinks, well, we can avoid that by boosting the economy, but by not spending money in the economy. By spending money in the economy, what I mean by that is handing money over to people who will actually spend the money. Instead, she's handing money over to corporations or to multimillionaires and billionaires. Someone who earns £108,000 a year will get £150 a month. £150 a month support from the government to deal with energy bills. No, sorry, it's not the energy bills. It's the national insurance contributions. So they will save £150 a month on the national insurance contribution cut. People at the very bottom of the scale, £12,000 a year, will receive 63p a month. So how is that helping people? So, here's an extra 63p. Go out and spend it in the economy. Boost the economy. No, that's not going to happen. You can't boost the economy with 63p a month. If it was 63p a day, it would do very little. 63p a month. Here's 63p. Go and spend it as far and wide as you can. What, actually, guys, in the chat, what can you buy today for 63p? Honestly, what can you buy? Half a Greg roll? Maybe. Honestly, what can you buy for 60? Can you buy a bottle of cheap Coca-Cola? Not Coca-Cola, but the non-brand one. Maybe a small bottle of that. Can't even buy a pint of milk with 63p. Boost the economy, buy a Cadbury twirl. You know, we have to laugh at these. Not even a Mars bar. I don't even think you can buy a Fredo anymore. A Fredo is, if you're lucky, a packet of Riesla. a stamp, a stamp for 63p, and post it to Liz Truss. A small choco bar. I bought a packet of peanuts for 59p. Okay. You can buy a good time. What sort of good time is that? 2 meals according to some. Yes, yeah, that's Lee. What's his Lee Anderson? Lee Anderson from the former Labour guy turned Tory. Says you can make meals. He can teach people to make meals with 30p. Although he claimed it was about £200,000 in expenses last year. A couple of penny sweets, a sheet of toilet paper. So there you go, a sheet of toilet paper, just make it last a month. And you get another 63p for the next one next month. 30p Lee. A sock. We have to laugh at these things, it's just it's beyond parody, it's completely ridiculous. So Liz Truss pledges to review tax rates amid cost of living crisis. Once again, a focus on corporation tax, a focus on the mega rich, people who don't need support. She's focusing on them with the idea that if we give money to the rich people, it will trickle down to the poor. It will trickle down to everyone else, and that's what boosts the economy. Like it did in the 1980s and the 1990s. Liz Truss has vowed to review all tax rates to help struggling households and businesses through the cost of living crisis in her latest break from Treasury orthodoxy. The Prime Minister's remarks on her first foreign trip to the US paved the way for a radical overhaul of the system that could include looking again at income tax brackets. In an interview at the top of the Empire State Building on Tuesday, she told the BBC, "We have to look at our tax rates so corporation tax needs to be competitive with other countries so that we can track that investment." People are not going to invest in a country that's going into recession. What does she not understand? I don't know if it's Liz Truss being just stupid or Liz Truss being manipulated by people around her who are saying, no, cut taxes for businesses, big businesses. Yeah, that will stimulate the economy. And she's like, oh, really? Oh, okay, I didn't know. I thought it... No, listen to us. We're the experts. We work at the IEA, We work at these right-wing think tanks that talk about privatizing the NHS, and where, some of us are funded by tobacco companies and some of us are funded by the fossil fuel industry. And we don't want you investing in renewable energies. We want you to frack our way to freedom, frack our way to economic growth. These are the people who are surrounding Liz Truss. She put these people in charge. So it can't be a case of her being stupid. It's a case of her not caring. She just wanted to be Prime Minister. Wouldn't it be great if somebody came along who wanted to be Prime Minister for the people? To make the lives of people better. Not the lives of some people, a very, very small number of people, but to make the lives of the people of Britain better. When was the last time that happened? George, thanks so much for that super chat. I'm sorry, but Truss is being stupid. See my chat. Thanks for that super chat. Fracking freedom. Max, my friend Donkey Dave is stopping the fracking. He is standing with the people. Very good. News channel, thanks for that comment. Donkey Dave, I'll check out Donkey Dave. Maybe I can provide him with a platform on the Sunday roast if we could get him on. Let me check if he's on YouTube or if he's on Twitter. A new slogan for the birds: save the pound. A small bag of Haribo is 18 cents in Tesco, so nearly 4 of them. Great for kids' parties. It's like, I can imagine how small these packets are. You could cut them into small pieces, slice the little jellies to make them last longer. Thanks so much for that super chat. Call me cynical, but it sure looks like Liz's priority is helping her donors pillage as much of the country as they can before the next election. It's not cynical. I agree 100% with you, and I said that before in one of the videos. That's what I believe it's all about. Here is the country. Do what you wish with it, and remember to donate to our party at the next election. You know, we're going to be kicked out, so have as much fun with the country as you want. Here it is. It's tied up. You can do as you wish to it, and but remember, it was us that gave it to you, and it was us that provided this opportunity. So remember that at the next election. Remember to donate to the Conservative Party, and some of them already have done that. So it's not cynical. I am in complete agreement. Why would you be doing this? You know, Johnson and Dominic Cummings had these focus groups. They got Get Brexit Done message. There's no messaging here. Liz Truss is not talking about what she's going to do for the people or for the country. It's all about, we're going to boost the economy by giving rich people loads of money. And it's not even hidden. She's trying to sell it to people. Like, there are people who can't pay their bills. There are people who can't feed their families. There was a story today I read, I shared it on Discord. There are families who are refusing to feed themselves so that their kids can eat. There are parents who are sending children to school dirty because they can't afford to heat the water for the children to have a shower or a bath. They can't wash the clothes because there's a huge cost related to washing clothes. So children are going to school dirty and in dirty clothes, and the children are getting bullied at school over that. And Liz Truss's I would give anything for somebody to say this to Truss. I know they've relayed stories like this to the former head of the Department of Work and Pensions, Therese Coffey, and her response was complete and utter indifference, inhumane response, unhuman response, because a normal person, when they were told somebody died, somebody was on benefits, their benefits were cut off and they died, you know, a normal human reaction would be, my God, that's terrible. And if somebody said, you are responsible for that, if I was responsible, my first response would be, I am sorry. We failed you. We failed that person. We failed that family. We failed that community. And I'm either going to resign over that or I'm going to try and fix it. Now that I know, I'm going to move mountains, move heaven and earth to fix that problem. That's what a normal person would do. But Therese Coffey's response was, well, you know, there is support available for people if they know where to go, and you can go down to your local job centre and you can do this, and the person is frigging dead, and she's talking about, well, you can find support doing this and you can claim on this benefit, and complete and utter disconnect, not just political disconnect, but disconnect from absolute reality. And I think it's, you know, once again, ordinary people are going to look on and say, okay, how am I supposed to pay my bills? How am I supposed to feed my family? And that needs to be presented to someone like Liz Truss. So at the next interview, somebody asks, look, there are people who can't afford to feed themselves. What should they do? I wouldn't ask, what are you going to do about it? I would ask Liz Truss and people like her, people in her cabinet, what should these people do? If, well, there's support available. Do you not think that's actually quite insulting to say there is support available? Do you think that somebody who is starving themselves has not actually tried to find support? Do you not realize that maybe the support is not enough, or that they have been sanctioned in some way? Sorry guys, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent here, but these things really piss me off. And you're not being overly cynical here. You're completely correct. Cthulhu, thanks for that super chat. Does Boris's offspring have names or numbers? Thanks for that injection of humor. We needed it. Well, during the fascist, you really hit on something there. During the fascist period in Italy, many children didn't actually have names. They had numbers. So they had primo, secondo, terzo, which means first, second, and third in Italian. So the children would actually be called primo, secondo, terzo. It's something that predates the fascist period, but it was something that was quite popular in the fascist period as well, because children just turned into numbers, which is very sad. Okay. But maybe Boris Johnson's... or they could be named after places where they were conceived, taxi, bus, bush, number 10, something like that. I don't know. I don't know. Conservative Party conference. We need a bit of humor, don't we? Please, there's a task for you guys to come up with. The names of Boris Johnson's children are named after where they were conceived. So please put it in the chat, the names of Boris Johnson's children. Thanks for that. George, thanks so much for that super chat. Stupidity is simply a failure of intelligence. Yeah, very well put. Sixtus. Witherspoon's toilets. Oh my god, you guys are amazing. What's a Pete? Skip Johnson. Sofa. Toilets at KFC. That would be Johnson, alright. Elections in Italy now. We'll get to that as well. Not a party. Dustbin. Behind the bins. Back close. The Kremlin. Decimo 10. Stationery cupboard. How many kids are we talking about? It could be between somewhere, between 1 and affinity. Parliament toilets. Tesco car park. Bojo child named toilet. Bike shed. Tumble dryer. I'm trying to read these as quickly as I can. Downing Street couch. Brexit bus. Kettle. I don't want to know how that worked out. Saab 900. In a fridge. Yeah, that was probably it. Airplane lavatory. Peppa Pig land. Oh my goodness. Accident 1, 2, 3, 4. Lebedev's castle in Italy. Putney Bridge. Wheelie bin. Oh my god, I'm Durham Castle. The River Styx. Mile High Club. Peppa Pig Land. Ditch. Mile High. JCP Cabin. Oh my goodness. I need to cut this out and make a video on this because this is amazing. Chat once. Rings. Oh, stop. Okay. Brooke. Sleepover party. KGB club. Okay. Let's move on. Actually, it's time for a funny moment because we're this was serious stuff and we've gone down a very comical rabbit hole there. Anyway, let's enjoy this funny clip and then we'll be back with more serious stuff in just a second. Specsavers toilets.
You followed a bin bag, and not many people could be up to the challenge there. But I think you really showed that actually you gave it a run for its money.
I saw the bin bag and I said, I will follow you.
What was the reception to your speech? It must have been fantastic being out there.
Of course, I was surrounded by friends and colleagues, but outside the gates of number 10, Downing Street, there were the people, and they were all so excited to see me. They were all shouting through the gates, "Go Liz, and or Liz go," all things like that. And yes. I thought, yes, I've been welcomed in by my public.
Well said. So let's move on. Sticking with the cost of living crisis, guys, pub firm warns of £18 million energy bill as businesses await news of aid package. My God. Acid Profit, thanks so much for that super chat. Lol. And I lolled too. Thank you very much for that. It says here, the boss of Fuller, Smith and Turner appeals for clarity on the help that firms can expect, as pub firm says energy bill for its current financial year is expected to be more than double. So this is a chain of pubs. In a trading update on the market on Tuesday, Fuller, Smith and Turner, which has almost 180 tenanted pubs and several hotels, said the expected bill for gas and electricity in its current financial year followed a total of 8 million for 2021-2022. It appealed for clarity on the assistance the firm could expect due last week, while revealing that sales continued to recover during the first 25 weeks of its trading year to the 17th of September. It said total sales were up 3% against pre-pandemic levels and 50% higher on the same period last year, which was marred by continued COVID restrictions. On a like-for-like basis, sales are up 21% up. But the company said it was mindful of the squeeze on disposable consumer income due to the cost of living crisis, despite the incoming energy price guarantee to limit household gas and electricity costs for the next 2 years from October. Well, there are some super chats I need to read. Lord Lloyd, thank you so much for that super chat. Very kind of you. Welcome to the stream. And okay, sorry, I thought there was another one there. It went on to say, the government has announced this month that businesses could benefit too, but just for a period of 6 months, with more targeted support to follow. More details expected to include some retrospective aid could be released ahead of the mini budget due on Friday. So this is what we're hoping to hear tomorrow, to support for businesses. It has been described by the government as a fiscal event because, unlike the budget or spring statement, there will be no independent analysis of the government's plan for borrowing and spending from the Office for Budget Responsibility. As we heard before, the Office for Budget Responsibility will not provide a forecast. They've been asking if they can, but the government says no, because it'll be so wonderful. There's no need for, an independent body to just continue to say how wonderful it will be. The Treasury Committee of MPs made clear on Tuesday that it was vital for a forecast was requested from the OBR if major tax changes were, as expected, to be revealed by the Chancellor. Businesses are also tipped to benefit from Kwasi Kwarteng's announcement as it grapples higher energy bills, shipping, wage and other costs. FS&T said its situation earlier this year we had forward purchase contracts in place to cover 50% of our forecast annual gas and electricity requirements. More recently, the energy markets have seen increase even further to unprecedented levels. With growing uncertainty and the risk of even higher market costs for energy as we head into the winter months, we have purchased additional forward contracts to cover what we anticipate will be our annual requirement, providing surely for the months ahead. The company said it had made good progress implementing a number of initiatives, with more to follow, which reduces its energy usage and helps mitigate these cost increases. Chief Executive Simon Emney said, while sales continue to recover from the effects of the pandemic, we are conscious that consumers face increasingly challenging times ahead. Fewer and fewer people are going out to the pub. And I think this has been the case since the pandemic as well. Many people wanted to go back to the pub after the pandemic, but now this cost of living crisis means it's very difficult for people. If you're going to the pub and the pub has to increase because of inflation, the price of the pint is going up, the price of your drinks are going up. So that means people have less disposable income to spend on alcohol. So what you're going to have is you're going to have people perhaps go less often to the pub, maybe spend the same amount or less, but they will go less often. And this is not what the pubs will. You're going to start to see. I feel you're going to see pubs closing, and whatever pubs do remain will maybe cut back on the number of nights they're open, or days that they're open. Because if you have the result of the pandemic where fewer and fewer people are going into city centres during the day, that means maybe some pubs will close during the day, and they'll only open at night when they are sure that there will be numbers, but there are less and less people going in as well. Max buffering? I hope not. So tomorrow there should be support for businesses. This will be announced by Jacob Rees-Mogg. Now, I was going to cover this story, but I want to move on because there's time is against us. Channel 4 privatisation to be re-examined by new culture secretary. So it says here, remember Nadine Dorries was the culture secretary? My God, how was that possible? But she was the culture secretary for a period under Boris Johnson. And now there's a new one who's not all that much better, but she seems to be re-examining the case for Channel 4, which should be good news. Michelle Donnellan's predecessor, Nadine Dorries, led to the controversial move to take Channel 4 out of public ownership during her time under Boris Johnson's leadership. Remember, she was saying, yeah, we're going to privatise. She was going to privatise something else. But no, I don't remember what that was. Anyway, Ms. Dorries said she had declined to continue with her cabinet position following Johnson. What's interesting is Nadine Dorries has deleted her Twitter account for some reason. That's very strange. Continue with her cabinet position following Johnson's departure earlier this month, with her successor as Prime Minister Liz Truss naming Ms. Donnellan the new Secretary of State for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. She told BBC's Radio 4 Today programme that Ms. Truss's government was re-examining the business case for the sale of Channel 4. We are looking especially at the business case for the sale of Channel 4 and are making sure that we still agree on that with that decision, and that is what I'm doing. I'm the type of politician that bases their decisions on evidence, that bases their decisions on listening, and that's what I'm going to be doing over the coming weeks. I will take that approach when it comes to Channel 4 and every aspect of my brief. It seems that maybe the government are parking this for a while because they have enough on their plate, and it's not popular, the privatization of Channel 4, and it's seen as Labour described it as cultural vandalism. Channel 4 is very well respected, not just in the UK but also outside the UK, for its independent way of interviewing and journalism. It's well respected. In some ways it's even more respected than the BBC. It has its faults as well, but it's generally much more respected than many of the other outlets, and it would be detrimental to Channel 4 if it was privatised, because it would go down the road of the likes of Gammon Brexit News or Talk Radio, things like that, where it doesn't focus on actual news, and it doesn't focus on issues that are important in the world. It would focus on very narrow issues that are, like, as we saw before, and I do see it would perhaps make a shift to the right, because it would be bought up by the likes of Murdoch or someone who would like to use it as another outlet to churn out propaganda, pro business propaganda, pro low taxation, small government propaganda, and then all the other crap, the sort of culture war crap that comes with it as well. So it's this may be postponed or postponed indefinitely, hopefully, cancelled hopefully. But it's definitely good news that it's going to be re-examined. Re-examine means, yeah, we're letting it go. We're not going to do it. Anyway, moving on, I just want to cover another story here. Let me read some of your comments before we go on to the next story. We have China 4 is one of the good things Thatcher brought in, yes. The problem with oil is that it's priced in dollars, so we do not see the benefit of the price drop because the pound has lost value against the dollar. That's very well said, Anthony, yes. So it's, this idea, well, we just need to frack more, we need to pump more gas, we need to extract more oil. It's not really going to bring down the price. If the price, if it's sold on the international market in dollars. So if you're buying it back, you're going to pay more. Liz no longer going with the Thatch haircut now. She's Prime Minister. Yeah, that's interesting. It was just a scam to convince people that she was Margaret Thatcher to get her into number 10. And people bought it. People fell for it. Savile respected the BBC. But it's interesting that it was Nadine Dorries and some other MPs, as former cabinet ministers, have deleted their Twitter accounts. Is something going to happen we don't know about? Anyway, let's move on. Strike action is taking place. It was postponed during the morning period, but it's back on the agenda. UK unions seek legal action review of government strike-breaking laws. So, as we heard before, Liz Truss became Prime Minister. Grant Shapps, the former Transport Secretary, I don't know who the new one is. Need to look into that. But Grant Shapps had talked about introducing legislation that would make it more difficult for trade unions to go on strike, workers to go on strike, and if they did, they could be sacked and replaced with agency staff. And this has been challenged by trade unions through the courts, it seems, which is, of course, very important to do because obviously this would be unconstitutional. But then Britain doesn't have a written constitution, so I don't know if it would be unconstitutional, but it would be against many. It would be against the European European Convention on Human Rights, because one aspect of that convention. Sorry, that one part of that convention is that workers have the right to form unions. So if Grant Shapps or Liz Truss tried to make that illegal, I don't think they would use that language because they'd have to work around it. So they are trying to make it more and more difficult for people to join unions and for unions to operate within companies. I don't know if they can ban unions altogether because it would be in breach of the European Convention on Human Rights. Anyway, it says here, trade unions have launched legal proceedings against the UK government, arguing that new laws allowing companies to use agency workers to break strikes are a broad daylight attack on the right to take industrial action. 11 trade unions, led by the Trade Unions Congress, TUC, have sought permission for a judicial review of new regulations making the change. The government brought forward the regulations in July amid an increasing number of strikes this year held by workers ranging from barristers to dockers and train drivers. It comes amid a cost of living crisis that has led to increased pay demands by workers. I think there was the Liverpool dockers who have gone on strike today. They started their strike today, which is going to create massive disruption because it will mean that, it will make problems for importing goods from Europe and from other parts of the world. Not what you need on the run up to Christmas. These workers are demanding a pay increase matching inflation, as far as I know. The company, once again, why are ports run by private companies? Shouldn't they be in the hands of the state? They're so important for the economy. They are the backbone of the economy. Why are they in the hands of private organizations, private companies? Shouldn't they once again be run by the state? Freddie B, thanks so much for that super chat. Anne-Marie Trevelyan's Transport Secretary, I think. Thanks so much for that. There's no need to send me a super chat for that thing, but I should have looked it up. Thanks for that, Freddie B. Great to see you on the stream. And which raises a very interesting question. You have Therese Coffey, who's now the Health Secretary, and she was at the Department of Work and Pensions. What skills did she have at the Department of Work and Pensions? What skills does she have at the Health Secretary, at the Health Ministry? Wouldn't it be better to have people who have some sort of ability? I'm not saying they have to be administrators, managers, or they have to be brain surgeon. You don't need to have a brain surgeon as the health secretary. But wouldn't it be great if they were a GP, for example, or somebody who had worked in healthcare, worked in the NHS, somebody who could bring something to the table? What the hell does Therese Coffey bring to the table? Nothing. Now, don't badmouth Coffey. I loves her. She's so fine. Max, I was listening to Nick Abbott a few weeks ago. A caller recommended you to Nick. He mentioned your YouTube channel on Twitter. Oh, thank you so much for... Whoa, that's super cool. That's super cool. I actually, I think I remember somebody mentioning it, and Nick... I don't know if Nick Nick has responded to some of my comments on Twitter, so it'd be great to have Nick on the Nick Abbott on the Sunday roast. Nick is a wonderful. I love Nick. He's an amazing guy and he's a wonderful commentator. Second only to James O'Brien. But I'll check out with Nick and see if he could come on the Sunday roast. But thanks for that shout out there. And thanks to whoever shouted out the channel to Nick. That's what you guys need to do. You need to call in James Bryan or Nick Ferrari or whatever and talk about the channel. I'll send you a mug or a t-shirt. It's been fun. It's fun being a Tory. I hear she brings a bottle of Merrydown and a box of cigars. A bottle of Merrydown and a box of cigars. Coffee likes a big cigar. Let's not go down that road. The new Prime Minister Liz Truss this summer responded to strikes with a pledge of tough and decisive action to limit trade unions' ability to paralyze our economy. What does that mean? Of course, she was talking about it in the context of trains and the railways, but and buses as well, the transport network. But obviously that could be expanded to ports, it could be expanded to schools, it could be expanded to hospitals, it could be expanded to the private sector as well. What's to stop her from doing that? Remember, as I perfectly said earlier on in the stream, in the super chat, this is about handing stuff over to their donors, to the mega rich, to the super rich and mega rich. It's about helping those people out, about handing over the country to them, because Truss knows that she's going to get kicked out at the next election. The Chancellor Cozy Carting and the Business Secretary Jacob Rees-Mogg have also reportedly promised action to weaker unions' power. The unions joining the legal action include ASLEF and the RMT, which have staged a series of strikes by transport workers and have severely affected the UK rail network this summer, as well as the manufacturing union, workers' unions GMB and Unite, the teachers' union, the NEU, and the civil servants' union, the FDA and PCS. They argue that the government's They argued that the government failed in its legal duty to consult unions before the agency workers change, and that the regulations violate fundamental trade union rights protected under Article 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights, as I said before. Yes, the government may be able to get around this by saying, yeah, you can still have your trade union, but it won't actually have any power, which is basically saying you can't have a trade union. Some of the lawyers writing this legislation are not stupid, so they will find ways of allowing the government to break, the spirit of the law, but not break the law in its directly. Peter, thanks so much for that super chat. Truss has the skills of a part-time agency worker. No offense to agency workers, but Truss's job is to a bit like Trump. Trump was there to make some money on the side, but Trump's main goal or main purpose, I should say, not objective, his main purpose was to transfer more and more wealth to the people who have lots of wealth to begin with. That's what it's all about. The Republicans, it doesn't matter if it's Trump or Bush or whoever, it's about transferring wealth from government to private organizations, private individual, very rich individuals or corporations. And Liz Truss is doing exactly the same here. She received £100,000 donation for her campaign to become Prime Minister from an ex-board member or a former executive, the wife of a former executive of BP? Yes, I think it was BP. She used to work for Shell. And then what did she do? Well, she said, I'm not going to impose a windfall tax on these companies. Even though the companies themselves have said it's not going to impact our plans for investment. So the companies said, we will invest. Liz Truss says, if we don't give them money, if we touch their profits, they won't invest. Which was a lie. And then what did she do? She borrowed, basically borrowing money, getting the taxpayer to pay for it, and handing it to the companies to keep the rate of gas low, or lower than before, or not actually lower than before, lower than expected. Whose side is she on? She's obviously on the side of the people who pay her. Liz Truss should actually have, those Formula One drivers. The Formula One drivers have these jumpsuits, these fireproof suits with all the logos of their sponsors on the suit. So Liz Truss should actually, when she's in the House of Commons, wear one of these Formula One suits with all the people, BP would be on it, Shell, I don't know, some of these private donors as well, these multimillionaires. They maybe they have a little crest or logo they can have printed out and and attached to her suit. So then the people would know, actually, okay, this is who she represents. Not us. She doesn't represent us. She represents these companies or these individuals. Thanks for that super chat. I haven't seen any interviews with the staff that Charlie made redundant on the mainstream media. That's interesting. Very interesting point. Some of them have been offered, it seems, redundancy packages. So part of the redundancy package could probably include not talking to the media. If you break that, you maybe get sued. I'm pretty sure many of them have non-disclosure agreements, so they can't talk about, or at least there's a sunset clause on it, so they can't talk about it for a period of time. But I imagine a lot of them, some of them were probably offered positions in other parts of the monarchy, in other rich homes. I'm not sure, but I imagine a lot of them were just laid off. They were given some redundancy package, and that's it. Mog could put all his offshore sponsors on his top hat. Yes. Cayman Islands PLC or whatever. Cayman Islands Bank PLC. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. I'd sponsor her. So I'd buy her a sponsor suit as long as I can test it's fireproof afterwards. Need to double check it meets UK standards. Yes, new post-Brexit standards. You're very, very mean, Magic. Thanks for that super chat. Yes. Freddie B, thanks so much for that super chat. Somehow she would set fire to this for the jumpsuit, Max. To that jumpsuit, yes. She wouldn't know how to use it. Once again, is Liz Truss a fool, or is she just easily manipulated? I don't know. Maybe both. She's a fool and easily manipulated. Or she's just somebody who doesn't care. Yeah, I don't care, what this impact has. As long as I'm Prime Minister. Now you've been Prime Minister. After this, you can go away. Don't be like Boris Johnson. I have a feeling Boris Johnson is going to try and get back into this. Wee Scott's dog, great to see on the stream. Non-disclosure agreement, box of biscuits from the Duchy of Cornwall, and an insurance that the MI6 hitman will shoot to miss. Very good. Maybe that's it. Yeah, don't go around telling people about us, okay? If you want to live. How do they cap household energy at 2,500? So, Jacques, it's not actually a cap. It's a sort of guidance for normal use. So it's saying that normal use will not go beyond this. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it's not really. I've heard Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, said this is not really a cap. It's a sort of guide for the energy company. So if people use more than it's based on the average, but it's not based on, or not everyone will be covered by it. So, for example, disabled people, as I've talked before, disabled people will use more energy and they won't be protected by this cap. Once again, they shouldn't really be calling it a cap because it's not really a cap. You can pay more than that. It's just based on the average or something like that. Liz Truss is just an ambitious mutt. No sense. Jacob Rees-Mogg thought he'd been asked to bury the late Queen personally, so he went to the funeral dressed as an undertaker. I saw that, with his top hat and all. I really wonder sometimes about Jacob Rees-Mogg. Does he go home and when he closes the door, he speaks like with a Liverpool accent or something? And he has like a vest, a string vest or something, and he burps. He drinks beer and burps. This is what I imagine Jacob Rees-Mogg when the cameras are not around, and then he's like, "Oh, somebody's at the door! Quick, put on the Undertaker suit and remember to speak like somebody from the friggin' 1800s." It's a tax burden, not a cap. Yes. If use goes down, will price per unit go up? There is something about that there is, of course, the standing charge, which should be removed. It's immoral to have a standing charge. Jacob Rees-Mogg in a white beater shirt and sweatpants, relaxing back home with a brew. I imagine that's what he'd really like. What you see is just for show. Alf Gardner behind closed doors. Yes. Jacob Rees-Mogg only lives for one day. His home is a factory for clothes. That would actually explain a lot of things. I'm wondering, will the media be covering what's happening in Birmingham at the moment? I haven't been checking what's happening in Birmingham at the moment. Well, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I just want to cover one or two more stories before we finish. First, this one here about what's happening in Russia.
News regarding what we were hearing a little earlier, that Vladimir Putin is apparently planning a statement at around 6 o'clock UK time.
This is actually being postponed until tomorrow for some reason, which is unusual because Putin, as far as I know, has never postponed an address to the nation.
On Ukraine. Well, the National Security Advisor at the White House, Jake Sullivan, is saying that Putin appears to be on the brink of holding sham referenda in areas they control. This is regarding areas in the Donbass, which the Russians effectively control, and plans announced earlier from Ukraine, those parts of Ukraine, to hold referenda on becoming effectively part of Russia.
Isn't it interesting? They said on day one They said, yeah, we're considering allowing these areas in eastern Ukraine to have a referenda, and then we're going to have the referenda like in a few days' time, and obviously we know the result. People will be frog marched down to the polling booth, and they will be explained which way to vote, and if they don't vote that way, well, then they will probably go missing. So the result, of course, will be, yes, we want to be part of Russia. So the war has gone so well that they actually have to convince or force these regions within eastern Ukraine to say, okay, we actually want to be part of Russia. Yeah. We don't have homes anymore because they've been destroyed by shelling. But we want to be part of Russia. Now, of course, there's been... Max, have you seen the French TV footage of Jacob Rees-Mogg as a child? He actually spoke like that when he was young. Yeah, I saw that. It was really depressing, actually, because children are supposed to have fun. Children are supposed to climb trees. Children are supposed to read the Beano. He was reading the Financial Times when he was like 8 or 10 years old. It's really sad. He was sitting in the back of a taxi talking about how financial markets work. A 10-year-old or 12. I don't remember how old he was. He was a kid anyway. That was really depressing. And it explains a lot. Like, his parents done that to him. That's probably why Jacob Rees-Mogg is such a horrible individual today. Russia can't hold referenda in places where the outcome would be considered questionable. Wonder if Putin will use the services of Cambridge Analytica again. This... And how is it possible for a foreign state to say, yes, we're gonna allow these states to have a referendum, and we will recognize it. The rest of the world won't, and we will say, yes, they are part of Russia. Like, could Ireland say, okay, we're going to allow Scotland to have a referendum to become part of Ireland, and the British government have no say on it whatsoever? I don't think that would be allowed. Maybe some Scottish people would like to become part of Ireland, but legally according to international law, I don't think that's permitted.
Jake Sullivan says the West will never recognise, the US will never recognise Russia's claims to any annexed part of Ukraine. He calls it an affront to principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Jake Sullivan, interestingly, also goes on to say that the White House is aware of reports that Vladimir Putin may be preparing to enact mobilization measures.
So this could be a pretext to mobilization. So these quote-unquote independent countries, Russia sees them as independent. The West doesn't see them as independent. Ukraine doesn't see them as independent. So these now who are quote-unquote independent decide, well, we actually want to become part of Russia in the space of 24 hours. If Russia says, yeah, they are part of Russia now, they can mobilize the population to defend this part of, because then it would be seen as an attack on Russia. This is what they're trying to do, I think. They're trying to say, this part of eastern Ukraine is Russia. So any attack on it is an attack on Russia. And we need to mobilize the army to defend Russia. Now, I think the vast majority of Russian people understand this and would be saying, I'm not joining this war. It's been an absolute disaster. Now, it won't really change much for the Russians because it's not that they don't have the numbers. Well, that's part of the problem, but they don't actually have the equipment. They don't have the weaponry. They don't have the military resources to continue fighting. And even if they could throw 100,000 or 200,000 soldiers at this, what are they going to give them? Bows and arrows? Pointed sticks? Is that what they're going to fight with? Because they don't have the equipment. And to move another size of an army that size, you need food, you need logistics. It's not just weapons they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have the basics of an army. And if Russia did go ahead with this, then it would galvanize even more support behind Ukraine. It's just insane. But then it seems Putin is either on his last legs here, or he has lost his mind completely. Russia is having a vote on Scottish independence. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for all of the super chats. Thanks for all of the comments. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job, as always. So before we finish, we have our one for the road. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this. And remember, after the stream, we have our post-stream chat. I'll be on Discord, so I'll be meeting up with some of you guys after that. So let's enjoy our one for the road before we go.
From Portsmouth is on the line and he is reflective.
I am disgusted, Anthony.
Disgusted.
Absolutely disgusted. Why have we stopped mourning the Queen? I see Gary bloody Lineker and the BBC have decided it's all right to enjoy ourselves again.
Well,
they put on excellent coverage to BBC.
They did.
You cannot fault them.
You can't fault them.
But you can fault them now because the coverage is finished.
I think that 10 days was the official mourning period.
10 days? 10 measly days? Victoria mourned Prince Albert for 40 years, and he was a genital piercing. Well, it just sums up this snowflake generation. And I see the queue smaller today, just because the cameras have gone. These so-called monarchists are worse than Man United fans.
Well, you've been queuing today.
I have. I've been doing my bit. 3 hours from Southwark towards the palace. Turned out it was for the new exhibition at the Tate Modern. But I paid my respects nonetheless. Maria Bartusova, what a sculptor.
What a sculptor. What a sculptor. How do you feel in this new post-Elizabeth era, Colin?
Just as angry as I was before, but now angry while wearing black. And you tell me this, right? Charles has had decades to think up a new national anthem. Then his mum dies, and what do we get? Exactly the same song, just with slightly different lyrics. That's pure bloody laziness right there.
Will it still make you aroused, though, Colin? That was the problem before.
Yeah, but I'll be thinking of the original. Anyway, Anthony, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. God save the king.
I won't get a hard on.
Colin from...
Anyway, would you guys be happy with 40 years of mourning? 40 years. Okay. So have a great week, and I'll see you on Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care. Once again, thanks to everyone who came on. Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks for the super chats, and thanks to the moderators and to everyone for writing their comments. Have a great week. Stay safe, and maybe see you tomorrow. Let's watch Jacob Rees-Mogg tomorrow during not Prime Minister's questions, but Prime Minister's whatever, at the business hour or whatever they call it. Anyway, let me get out of here. Have a great week. See you soon. Take care.